Good morning. It's Friday morning, just after 10 o'clock, which means it's time for the Real Estate Fix on your hometown station, KHTS 98.1 FM and AM 1220. I'm your host, Rich Sherman. We got a lot of stuff to get through today, but first, as always, because I'm married to an attorney, disclaimer, I am not an attorney and I do not give legal advice. I hold a California real estate license and I have for over 30 years. The opinions I express and the advice I give is strictly my own. I would encourage anyone who has real estate issues to also check with the relevant experts like attorneys, accountants, etc. So hopefully that keeps me out of trouble when I say things that are not wonderful. Okay, so we got a lot to get through today. We're going to do a little bit of a market update. We're going to get into listener questions. And in studio today, we have a very special guest. Very excited about this. We have Steve Korn, legend in local real estate here with Newhall Escrow. He's one of the few people I know who's been doing this longer than I have. I think he's got me beaten by a year, if I'm not mistaken. I'm 31 years into this. Anyway, and we're going to end the show by talking more about my favorite thing, giving away free money, because that seems to be everybody's favorite thing. That's what we seem to get the most response to. We talked a little bit about last week about giving away free money to buyers, and this week we're going to talk about that a little more, and because it seems to require more explanation. I don't understand why. It's just free money. And we're going to talk about what we do for sellers as well, and how we give sellers money to fix up their house. But First, we're going to get into a little bit of a market update. You guys like to know what's going on, and I like to tell you. So I got a couple of things to go over here with you, but in general, let's go over. There's a great article earlier this week on Business in Business Insider, which, if you don't read about, is a fabulous place to get real estate information. As far as I'm concerned, I see a lot of good stuff there. But anyway, a couple of reports came out last week that were fairly important, and we should certainly talk about them. The first is that U.S. home prices again, just fell for the second consecutive month, according to Case-Shiller data. So that's 7 consecutive months with housing prices falling. Some experts anticipate that home prices will remain a little bit higher. Others say they're going to see steep declines. This is the current problem in the real estate market, is everybody seems to have a different answer. Are housing prices going up, housing prices going down? Everyone you ask seems to have a different answer. But here's what some of the economists are saying. The S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller National Home Price Index, which is a gauge of homes across the country, slipped 0.2% in January compared with December on a seasonally adjusted basis. That's the 7th consecutive monthly drop, representing the longest slump since 2012. Prices are not falling as much as they did, but they are still falling down. They are still going down a bit. We've lost about 10% since its absolute height in April of last year, and there's still a little bit more room to lose, I think. Unfortunately, we're going to count a little bit more. I've been saying we're going to lose as much as another 10%, but I think we're going to lose a little less than that. I'll explain why. But anyway, year over year, the index has climbed, same Case-Shiller index, has climbed 3.8% in January, slower than the prior month's 5.6 rate, and the smallest annual gain since 2019. According to Freddie Mac, over the last year, the Federal Reserve's aggressive interest rate hiking campaign has helped lift mortgage rates sharply, weighing on affordability and demand. The 30-year fixed rate was 6.42 last week, according to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, up from 4.42 a year earlier. So yeah, it's about 2 points higher than it was a year ago, and that's a lot. So here's what the experts are saying, and I love the experts they quote in this article, because whenever you hear from an expert, myself included, and I'm going to call myself an expert, you can call me that too, always consider your source. Always, always, always consider your source. So let's see what Zillow has to say about the real estate market. Zillow would like us all to know that reacting to Tuesday's Case-Shiller reading, Zillow's senior economist Jeff Tucker said other data in January showed time on the market has begun to accelerate, which means houses are sitting on the market longer, and pending home sales have partially rebounded from November's lows. Again, consider your source. Zillow has a very, very, very large interest in making you think the real estate market is fine and that prices are going to continue to go up. I'm not saying they're right, wrong, or different. I'm just saying consider your source. Anyway, more from Zillow's Jeff Tucker. As the markets continue as the markets come back to life this spring, prices are likely to rise month over month, but fall year over year. I'm not entirely sure how he gets there. Prices are going to rise month over month, but fall year over year. That means they're going to rise slightly from where they are now, but won't be as high as they were last year, I think is what he's going for there. I don't necessarily agree. But anyway, compared to last year's frenzied spring shopping season, home shopping that is, when buyers race to lock in lower mortgage rates, just how much prices will rise from winter lows will depend on whether mortgage rates stabilize or creep downward or stay high and volatile. In other words, it might go up, it might go down. So thank you to the people from Zillow. That was super duper helpful. All right, let's try Bright MLS. Let's see what they're saying. According to the good people at Bright MLS, which is another good home source for data, home price growth will likely continue to be moderate this spring, and there may be moderate year-over-year price declines in other cities. Barring a major recession, which I would say we're already in, but let's go with him. Barring a major recession, however, it is likely that the combination of low inventory and sufficient levels of demand will keep home prices from coming down significantly in most local markets. So home prices have already come down significantly in most local markets, so maybe he means they're not going to come down much more. I disagree, but we'll see. I'd love to be wrong about that. Anyway, a significant recession with serious labor market impacts, which is not likely, is the one way in which competition in the housing market could slow and prices could fall. I don't agree with any of that. He's saying the prices are going to basically go up, but not a lot. Zillow doesn't disagree too much. They think it's going to go up as well, and I hope they're right, but I disagree with both of them. Beazer Homes, which I think has a bit more sober look at the market, a guy named Alan Merrill, their chief executive, home building, just said, the U.S. is facing a serious housing supply shortage, which is true, combined with constraints in the labor market, and relief seems years away. In other words, we're going to have this problem for a while. Quote, his quote is, long term, the housing shortage puts a floor under demand in this country for newly built homes, which is true, but we have a structural deficit. I don't see the mechanisms in place that are likely to close that shortage anytime soon. So what he's trying to say there is that demand is always going to remain relatively high because we have a shortage of houses. We just do not have enough of them, especially in California. And he's talking nationally, of course. So there is a floor on which it won't go below, which I agree with. However, doesn't mean housing prices are going to go up. Demand is good, but interest rates are high, so that dampens demand. It's all about supply and demand, and with the real estate, it's all about the interest rate. And then my favorite of all of these, the National Association of Realtors. I love NAR. I'm a member. I think they're great, but their data always skews toward the sunshine about these sort of things, and it's not always the best advice to give people. Let's see what they're saying. In an interview earlier this month, Nadia Evangelou, senior economist and director of research at NAR, said the collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank and the ensuing turmoil in the financial sector could spark more activity in the housing market. In other words, because that bank failed, and so did Signature Bank, and we almost lost a few others, that has driven the interest rate down, which we're going to get into in a second, rather than up, even though the Fed raised it. And the result of the interest rate going down a little bit is more buyers coming into the market. It's kind of that simple. The lower the interest rate is, the hotter the buyers are, the more buyers are in the market, the more houses sell. Prices go up. In other words, interest rates low, housing prices high. Interest rates high, housing prices low. Not that complicated a concept. People just lose track of it sometimes. Anyway, according to her, we had experienced mortgage rates, according to NAR, we expect them to come down to a lower range of 6% sometime around the second half of 2023, but now we may see that level in coming weeks. So NAR is telling us that the interest rate on 30-year fixed mortgages is going to drop below 6% in the coming weeks. The housing sector reacts immediately to changes in mortgage rates. We expect some relief in affordability. Houses will become cheaper to get because interest rates will be lower. I don't even know how I can say how much I disagree with that. I do not think the interest rate's going to fall much further. And the reason I say that is, we'll go to this report. For those of you who don't know, Sam Chong with the Mortgage Hub is one of the sponsors of the show. We love having Sam sponsor the show. He's a wealth of knowledge. And Sam puts out a weekly newsletter, which if you don't get, you should subscribe to, or ask him if he'll get you subscribed to it. You can get to Sam through our website here at the station. But he's fantastic, and the Mortgage Hub puts this out. It's really wonderful. I want to read a little bit of this to you, because I think it's a bit more sober view of the current market. I think it's more accurate, more importantly. While there were no further bank failures this week, there were plenty of concerns and speculation who might be next. Those concerns teamed up with Wednesday's Fed announcement to push interest rates lower, pushed interest rates lower, yes, even though the Fed hiked rates. Meanwhile, the two separate reports showed a decline in home prices. So prices are still going down, and it's nice that the rate came down a little bit, but it's going to go back up. So for the moment, it's good. We'll get to the conclusion of that in a minute. Anyway, since the failure of Silicon Valley Bank earlier this month, financial markets drastically shifted their trading patterns. Up until that point, the default reaction was for stocks and bonds to win and lose together, depending on the implications for the Fed's policy. Specifically, if economic data came out that made the markets think the Fed would be friendlier, stocks and bonds would improve together. But if something looked like it would make the Fed cranky, they lost together. Now, that hasn't happened because of the last failures of the banks. They've kind of gone their separate ways. Stocks have gone one way, and bonds have gone the other. The simple answer for that is that fears about the banking sector have driven what's known as a flight to safety. That involves selling riskier assets like stocks and purchase of safer assets like bonds. In other words, people are getting out of stocks and more into bonds. Ups the bond market, drops the stock market. This ebb and flow has followed the various banking contagion headlines as well as the Fed's comments on the topic on Wednesday the 22nd. The Fed had a huge meeting on Wednesday, and what they announced is they raised the interest rate by Wednesday of last week a quarter point, which we all expected. But in spite of the banking drama, the Fed's hike itself had little or no impact on the market. In fact, the opposite happened. Interest rates went down. Because traders were focused on Fed Chair Powell's willingness to entertain additional risks posed by the stress in the banking sector, he likened the uncertainty to a free rate hike, and that it has the effect of tightening financial conditions without the Fed needing to hike rates again. Many market participants saw this as paving the way for the Fed to be less aggressive with rate hikes going forward. I hope that is true, because the rate hikes have been really bad for the market. Anyway, mortgage rates, because of the rate hike, despite the rate hike, I should say, mortgage rates have tended to fare fairly well, with 10-year Treasury yields this week is no exception. Both pushed into lowest levels since early February. From here, rates can lurch lower abruptly and infrequently in the event of additional bank failures, or significantly spike in contagion fears. Rates can move higher as well, but such a move would likely be gradual, considering traders will only take their guard down slowly as days go by without additional bank failures. Banking issues aside, there is economic and inflationary worries to deal with. If the banks fade into the background, rates will once again begin rising steadily as influenced by inflation. The way that's affecting housing prices is very simple. It's driving housing prices down. Interest rates up, housing prices down. There's usually a direct correlation there. So that's kind of the story as far as the economic markets are concerned. And the takeaway from all of this is, and we talked about this a little bit last week, is the interest rate we got to break. We got a little window to work within. The interest rates have been going up steadily. They're up more than 2 points since a year ago, which is devastating the housing market. It's dropped prices almost 10%, actually a little over 10% in our area, in Southern California, here in Santa Clarita. But because we had a little bit of a respite here, because the interest rate, even though the Fed spiked the interest rate by another 1/4 of a point, because it stressed the financial system and because banks have begun to fail, what it's done is it's gotten investors out of the mortgage market and more into the bond market, out of the stock market, more into the bond market. And what that's done is it's caused interest rates to fall, which is a great little blessing. It's not going to last. So as I said last week, if you were looking at buying a house anytime in the next year or so, you might want to think about doing it now. I think prices are still a little higher than they're going to be, a couple, 6 months, a year from now. I could be wrong about that. I think they're going to fall a bit. But you're going to save on the interest rate, and you're going to save a lot more money on the interest rate than a few point correction in the housing prices. Now, I'm going to revise my prediction because I've been saying that we're going to lose another 10% in the housing market by the end of the year. But the failure of Silicon Valley Bank and the financial market's reaction to that has changed, as kind of, has wiped out the Etch-a-Sketch and kind of caused us to refocus, reevaluate. And now what I'm saying is I still think we're going to lose, but I think we're going to lose about another 3 to 5%. So I'm actually cutting my prediction going forward in half. It's still a loss, but it's not nearly as deep as I thought it was going to be. I thought we would lose all of the COVID gains. We gained about 20% over the 2.5 years in COVID went on. In other words, if you had a house at the beginning of COVID, it's worth roughly 20% more now, or at least at the end of COVID, than it was at the beginning. And we lost, the peak of that was April of last year, and we've lost about 10% of that gain. So we've lost about half of it. We're probably going to lose another 3 to 5% by year's end, but we'll see what happens. Like everything else, it steps in a process. So that's kind of the mortgage news, the housing news. That's what's going on. So again, if you're looking at buying a house sometime in the next year, you might want to get off the stick and take a look at it. Same thing if you're looking to sell a house, because I still think prices are going to drop a bit. Now, 3 to 5% isn't that much, but it's significant. I mean, it's a lot for most people. I mean, if you're talking about an $800,000 house, you're talking about $24,000 that you should be able to get now that you will not be able to get later. Could be as much as $40,000 if it's a 5% drop. So we'll see what happens, but you got to start getting into these things as soon as you can. And if you're making plans to do anything with real estate within the next year, accelerate those plans. Even if you don't pull the trigger on it, just get yourself in a position where you know what you're doing. Talk to your agent, talk to your lender, talk to the powers that be. Get yourself in a position. Because this little window that we've got, I don't think it's going to last. I think what's going to happen is the financial markets are going to start rebounding over the next week or two, and we're going to start interest rates going up again. I would guess that by the end of April, we're going to start interest rates going up again. Again, I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I'd love to be wrong about this. So for those of you who want to write in or who want to call in and tell me I'm wrong, I'd be happy to be wrong. That would be great. I would love to see interest rates continue to come down, because that would mean housing prices would continue to go back up. So I like that. But anyway, so we got a bunch of stuff to get into today. I want to get into listener questions a little bit because we got a couple of good ones. We also have Steve Horn here from Newhall Escrow, and a lot of these are actually most of these are escrow specific. So we'll talk about that. But before Steve gets in here, I'll start telling you guys about one client that we're working with right now, and they're a really good example as to why you should always, always, always run an escrow. In their particular case, what they did, young couple. Lovely, lovely people, 4 kids. They bought a house about 4 years ago, and they thought they bought a house. What they did is they took over a house. They referred to it as buying a house, but they didn't run an escrow or anything else. All they did is they got themselves on title and quitclaim the other person off title, which is a simple 1 or 2 page, in a notary kind of process. So they're on title of the house, and they thought of it as taking over the loans on the property. The problem is they didn't tell the bank they were taking over the loans on the property. They just kept making the payment, which would have been fine, except they didn't know there was a second. So they got a letter in the mail about 3 months ago that was, hey, guess what? You guys owe us $170,000. Please pay us in the next 90 days. Otherwise, we're going to take your house. And there's a lot of equity in the house. There's over $500,000 in equity in the house at this point. So obviously they were a little bit shocked by that. And we've talked about these letters before. I deal with people all the time who get these sort of things, and we can fight them back and save the house, which is what we do and what we did in this case. But the point here is, had they run an escrow, they would know about that. Had they run an actual honest-to-goodness escrow, an escrow officer would have gone through it, title would have worked on it. That's the other thing, by just transferring title like that, they created a cloud on title. But there's all kinds of problems you get into when you do not follow the steps in the process. It's mess. And so in their case, what we had to do is approach the bank and say, I realize that the owner of the house is not on the loan. And they went, but we need to work out a deal so that they can pay the loan or take over the loan so that they don't lose the house and you guys don't foreclose. Now, there's something, one of the biggest reasons for not doing this, and one of the things that would have been alleviated if they had actually run an escrow and knew, is when you take over a loan, and I don't mean assume a loan where you submit paperwork to the bank and the bank knows what you're doing. When you just sort of do it yourself, where Bob Smith has the loan and you take over Bob's house and he moves out and you're on title and that's fine, and you just start paying Bob's loan and you don't actually take it over, you just pay for it as a means of taking it over. In California, every loan in the state of California that I've ever seen has something called a due on sale clause. What that means is, if you monkey about with the title to the property and you don't have the permission of the bank, to a point, they have the right to call the loan due and payable. So not just the first, which they knew about, but the second as well. So here they have a first that they thought they were servicing just fine. It could be called due and payable. They didn't know that, which means they'd have to pay off the entire thing inside of 60 or 90 days, depending on the bank's crankiness level. Because banks don't like it when they loan buyer A money to buy a house, and buyer A goes away, deeds the house to now buyer B, and buyer B is not on the loan. Banks get cranky about that sort of thing because their recourse would be against buyer A and he's no longer on title. By the way, they can still foreclose on the property if that happens. But what you cannot do is give a bank a reason to call a loan due and payable. So those people who do, realtors especially, who tell you that you can just, well, we'll just put you on title. There's more to it than that. And we're going to talk about that when Steve gets in here, but there's much, much, much more to it than that, and there is for a reason. This couple is a very, very good example. Now, we saved their house. They're going to be fine. We got it all sorted out. But I think without our intervention, there's a very, very good chance that they would have lost the house, if not to the second mortgage, then certainly to the first. Because when the first realized that their guy was no longer on title, the person they loaned the money to was no longer on title, and somebody else was, you can imagine they were a little cranky about it. We got it all sorted out. All's well that ends well. We even got them a discount on the second. We got them a second to carve out a little bit of the money they were claiming they owed, so we got a little bit better deal there. And it's all going to be fine. But like I said, I tell you guys all the time, I've been doing this for a very long time. I know what I'm doing, and I fix problems like this all the time. But this is a problem that should never have existed. All they had to do was go to a proper escrow company, like Newhall Escrow, have a proper escrow officer, and do a proper escrow, and they'd have been okay. They wouldn't have been in the dark. The banks would have been surprised. They wouldn't have had all kinds of trouble. So we fix these things regularly. We're going to have Steve in here in just a minute. I think after our next break, we'll have Steve come in and we'll talk about all things escrow because he knows everything there is to know about escrow. He's fantastic. Good company, too. I use them a lot. I recommend them most highly. Local company and independent company. They're good stuff, Newhall Escrow. But let's see about going to break. We'll pay some bills. We'll take some commercials, and we'll have Steve come in. We'll take some, my favorite part of the show, listener questions. I love it when you guys ask us questions. It's my favorite part of the show. So I'm Rich. This is The Real Estate Fix with Rich Sherman on KHTS, your hometown station, AM 1220 and 98.1. We'll be back after this. Hello, welcome back. You've reached The Real Estate Fix on your hometown station, KHTS. I'm your host, Rich Sherman. And we have a special guest in studio today, Steve Korn. Hi, Steve. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in. For those of you who don't know, I can't imagine there's anyone who doesn't. Steve Korn owns and operates Newhall Escrow. Newhall Escrow's been here longer.
60 years.
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah, longer than we've been alive.
Third oldest business in Santa Cruz Valley.
Who's older?
Saugus Cafe, and I think who the other one was. An industrial company, yeah.
They should put you guys on the home tour. That's
yeah.
Why I think you guys are the third oldest company. That's cool.
Yeah.
Says longevity says something. I get accused all the time of jumping into topics sort of in the middle because I assume people know things that are not necessarily true. So I was specifically asked by one of my staff members, who's a whopping 20 years old, that the first question I should ask you is, what is escrow? Because she's been working for me for 6 months and she isn't sure, which makes me a little concerned about my training regime. But what is escrow? Why do people need an escrow? What is it?
I'm going to use a simplistic term to describe it, kind of like a referee. Okay, so in other words, both sides of the field think they're right all the time, right?
Well, I'm right.
Yeah, well, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I'm sure we're all right at the same time, but
Sure.
but no, really, in a real estate transaction, you got to have somebody that overlooks the paperwork, the money, to make sure that who are supposed to do what they're supposed to do does what they're supposed to do.
A neutral third party is probably what
100% correct.
Yeah. So when you get an escrow, because you have to have a referee, a neutral third party in there, because they take in the money. Well, first of all, I think it's the law in the state of California. You have to have an escrow. People do it without, but I think you have to run an escrow.
Well, it would be the equivalent of buying a car for cash and not getting a pink slip.
Yeah, that would not be good. So number of reasons you guys would need an escrow, but basically they're a neutral third party who handles the money, handles the paperwork. They're the hub of the wheel.
That's right. Yep. The cog.
Very foolish to do that. So let's get into some questions. We've got some good ones. Now, what I do when you guys send me questions, so those of you who are listening who've written in, I appreciate it. You can reach me at thefixwithrich@gmail.com. Again, that's thefixwithrich. We like taking questions there. You can also reach me through the station. I also give it my cell phone number all the time. You can call me on that. Some of you may have heard it going off earlier. Sorry about that. We get questions all the time. So what I do is I go through these and I'll comb down, because usually these questions are really long and there's a lot going on. I'll comb it down to just the few sentences that are the most prevalent part. So from Audrey Y., her question was, I'm currently looking for our first home. When does escrow open, and what do I have to do to open an escrow?
Escrow is opened when the contract is accepted by the parties. So if the buyer writes an offer to a seller accepts the offer, the next step is the buyer deposits an earnest money deposit, and that constitutes agency and the opening of escrow.
Okay. Now the mechanics of that, I'll just tell a quick story here. When I first got into real estate, my first week in real estate, my mother had been in real estate for a while. She went on vacation immediately, because after all, I was there for a week. And as she was walking out the door, she said, "Oh, open that escrow." And I went, "Okay." I didn't know how to do that. I thought it involved a shovel. So I went to the office manager at the company I was at the time, and I said, "How do I do this?" And she had some fun with me, because she sent me out to go get a few things. She sent me around town. She sent me to go get duct tape and a notebook, as I recall.
That's funny.
So I think she was trying to get ready to me for half an hour. So I came back with that like an idiot, and I said, "I have duct tape and a notebook. What do I do now?" And she said, "Well, pick up the phone and just dial it and call escrow and tell them that you have an escrow." And then you just back in those days you had fax machines, and you fax them the paperwork. And I, to this day, don't know what I'm supposed to do with the duct tape or the notebook, but it's been 30 years. I'll figure it out eventually.
We'll figure out a way to do that.
Yeah,
that
you
duct tape,
just call it. There's not much to it. So to answer Audrey's question, escrow opens when you have a complete contract, when you have a fully executed contract, an agreement between the parties, and the deposit comes in.
That's right.
Let's move on to the next one. Joe S. We talked about this a little bit. Why do I need an escrow company? Can't I just do the paperwork myself and save the money? I love this guy. This guy's going to get himself in trouble.
Well, Joe, listen, here's the deal, buddy. If like I said, you go to a car lot and you pay cash for a car, you want to walk off with the pink slip, right? Well, when a home purchase is the single most expensive investment you're going to make in your lifetime, for the most of us, right?
Yeah.
So when you hand me that money and I hand that money to the seller, I'm going to hand you a free and clear title to that property, guaranteeing that you can sell that property in the future should you wish with no problems.
Yeah.
Stand in your way.
Well, when you do this stuff without escrow, it creates clouds on title with title, so you have trouble selling it. You also can get a loan that gets called in if you're taking over a loan. You're also never going to get financing without running an escrow. No bank is going to loan you money. No reputable bank is going to loan you money without running it through escrow. Again, neutral third party. They need to look over all of this stuff, and they serve a very, very, very important purpose. Without escrow, houses don't change hands. At least they shouldn't. So to answer your question, Joe, and please listen to me here, Joe, because you're going to get yourself in trouble. You and I have talked a little bit, and you're a very nice guy, and I appreciate all your questions, but you seem to want to game the system. You seem to have this idea that you're going to do it differently than everybody else, and I'm all for that. Innovation's a great thing, but his manner of going about it is going to get him some trouble. You can't sidestep and ask.
We're in place for a reason, Joe, because we have people out there that are not good people, and they want to definitely try to get one over on somebody, and that may be you one day. So you want to have me in your corner.
Neutral third party, very, very important. Referee. Let's move on. I'll talk to you about Joe a little off the air because he's going to need your help. Let's talk about another one. Bob H. I'm selling my house next year, and I've never picked an escrow company before. Usually my agent sets it up. Can I pick my own escrow company, and what should I be looking for in an escrow company?
Bob, you can absolutely pick your own escrow company. The law provides you the ability to decide which services will work on the contract. We've been in business for 60 years, and that's for a reason, because we are fair, professional, and result-oriented organization, and that's what you want to look for. Somebody who's been around for a while and has experience, and will take care of you.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'll even go one further. I think as realtors, I'm a realtor, right? I think we lose sight of the fact that it's not up to us to decide who the services are going to be. We can recommend. I recommend you guys all the time. But it's not up to us. It's up to the clients to decide who they want. Now, having said that, in the over 30 years I've been doing this, with only the exception of people I've been lucky enough to represent who work at escrow companies, no one has ever said to me, I want to use escrow company A or escrow company B. They should, but they don't because they rely on the agent to just pick for them. And I get that if you're an agent, you've got a team around you, and you've got people you use regularly. I do that. We like it when you use the services we use, but for us, there's a reason. It's because they are reputable, because, and especially in the case of Newhall, they've been around for a long time, excellent reputation. You can trust them. They know what they're doing. You don't survive for 60 plus years in the escrow business by not knowing what you're doing. I mean, in the 30 years I've been doing this, is what, 31 for me, 32 years I think I was reading for.
That's right.
Yeah, the 30 plus years we've both been doing this, we've seen a lot of escrow companies come and go. Some of them rather spectacularly. Sometimes they close up and take people's money with them. Sometimes people go to jail for doing that sort of thing. So it's very, very important. You're talking about this kind of money. It's very, very important who you use. So you should do your own research and you talk to your agent, see what they have to say for sure. Take their input seriously. But it's not up to the agents. It's up to the clients, and you should definitely know that. Let's move on to another. We're getting through these quick. Let's go on to another one. Brad W. I like this one. This is mostly for Shelley, though. Does it matter who the escrow officer is? What does an escrow officer do? Everybody think, I don't know why, there's this attitude that, and I don't know where this comes from, that escrow officers there's basically they just fill out paperwork. And that's all escrow officers do. And I know that that's not true. I know that's ridiculous. That's not true. Escrow officer is one of the most, other than a realtor, because I'll say that because I'm a realtor, probably the most important person in the transaction next to the principals. So let's answer. I'll be very curious what you have to say. Brad, please answer Brad's questions. What does it matter who the escrow officer is, and what does the escrow officer do?
So it does matter, but Brett, to your question, most of our transactions are process driven. That means that we have people in our offices that do the same thing day in, day out, every day of the week. Okay, the escrow officer, however, oversees all of that, and we are actually in a position to, answer questions, the tough questions. People are nervous. They're anxious. There could be all kinds of emotions flying. And so we're the ones that are going to get a hold of the parties and sit and settle them down, answer their questions, give them the information they're asking for, and make the thing move along, the thing being the escrow. So the escrow officer's job is to work at a higher level than the frontline folks that are doing the behind-the-scenes work.
Yeah. What would you say is the most important attribute for an escrow officer?
Having the ability to deal with multiple personalities at the same time and being able to get everybody to cooperate with each other.
Yeah.
And really, honestly, and listen. You got to be a good listener.
Communication.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah, you can always, in my experience, I can tell you that you can always spot the difference between a good escrow officer and a bad escrow officer. The first way, there are a lot of differences, but the first way you can always spot a good escrow officer versus one who is not is communication. If you can't, it's one of the escrow officers are busy, so if I call them Tuesday at noon, I don't expect them to be on call for me. But if I don't get a call back by Wednesday, we might have a problem.
Yeah.
So, or an email or whatever is kind of convenient. So yeah, communication is absolutely key. And I have one more. That I like a lot. This is from Stephanie V. What does in escrow mean?
In escrow?
Yeah.
Means that you've deposited your funds, we have an accepted contract, and the process is moving forward to transfer ownership from one party to the other.
Yeah, it just means that escrow is open. It just means that it's moving along.
Open's open.
Escrow open.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, those are the questions I had for you. But I want to talk about this one client we had because I think you'll appreciate this a lot. So I was telling the story before we had you in here a little bit. In this particular couple's case, what they did is they met somebody who was quote unquote selling a house. They were convinced not to use an escrow company because they were going to save all this money, you see. And all they did was they took the seller who was on there and quitclaimed that seller off and quitclaimed my client on. And that's it. That is the sum total of what they did. No notice to the banks, no notice to anybody. Just 1 minute they're on title, next minute one guy's on title, next minute the other person is. Now we unwound all of that because you have to do that sort of thing. But I'm sure you've seen far, far worse. What should they have done?
Contacted an attorney or a professional real estate broker and discussed the matter quickly.
Yeah. What, in my view, it's beyond all that is what they should have also done is you don't have to have a realtor necessarily.
Nope, you should not.
You can go to an escrow company.
True
without
story.
it. I mean, I wish you wouldn't because I like doing my job. But and I think I'll speak for other realtors. We all like doing our jobs. But even if you go to an escrow company independently, even if you have your own seller, you're on your buyer, you don't necessarily need a realtor or even an attorney. Which I don't say how you're doing that, but even if you got that far, I don't get how you're doing a transaction like that, and you're not aware of any of the pitfalls. You're not paying any attention. In their case, they were paying the mortgage. They were doing what they thought they were supposed to be doing, and they came within a whisker of losing the house. We were about 2 weeks away at one point from foreclosure before we managed to get it all sorted out because they didn't use an escrow company. Right. So it also creates, for title companies, it also creates a cloud on title. You have title does your insurance. Title verifies that the chain of title is accurate and good, so we can move ahead, we can sell, we can do whatever we need to do. You have clear title, in other words, there's nobody making a claim. And if you don't run escrow and you don't get a title policy, you got yourself a problem. Because, like in their case, they kept saying, well, they said, and I had to explain to them, it doesn't matter what they said. Real estate is not a verbal business. There is no such thing. When I train staff, I beat this into their heads all the time. Real estate is not a verbal business. There is no such thing as verbal real estate. Everything must be in writing. Why you have to run an escrow. So they didn't know about due on sale clauses. They had no idea. They didn't read their mortgage note. Nobody ever gave them an opportunity to. Nobody reviewed it. They had no idea. They didn't even know it was an adjustable mortgage, let alone that there was a second. All of that could have been alleviated, correct me if I'm wrong, all of that could have been alleviated if they had actually run an escrow. Because escrow would have pulled title and would have said, you've got another note.
100%. And just imagine, Rich, you know this better than anybody, but we have local ordinances, we have homeowners associations, we have solar lease systems need to be transferred, we have just a multitude of issues that a common consumer would not understand how to navigate. And about the title situation, I call those landmines. Okay? There's landmines out there that once you hit one, you're done.
Okay? No, that's a very accurate explanation.
So we discover the landmines and eliminate them ahead of time so that when you put your money on the table, you're going to walk away with a free and clear title.
Yeah, and you've got to have that. Because, well, in their case, luckily we were able to get in there, and luckily the banks understood the situation. They understood that our clients weren't trying to get away with anything. They just had made some foolish decisions because they were foolish people, just because it wasn't properly explained to them. And I think we have, at the moment, we got another one of these cases right now. We have this one that we just wrapped up and one other we just wrapped up. And those are 3 cases just in the last 6 months that have come into the office where they don't understand what's going on. And I said, well, where are your escrow instructions? And they go, well, we didn't do that.
Yeah.
What do you mean you didn't do that? That's not optional. Who made you think that was optional? I'm willing to bet that somebody profited from the fact that they convinced you that that was optional, client. And sure enough, in every situation, that's what happened. And in most cases, it's bad faith. And in the 3 that we have right now, it's, in my view, bad faith from the seller.
You know, a lot of times I find people just out of ignorance. They call me and say, "I want to sell my property to my tenant." Okay, fine. What do you tell me a little bit about the story? And they start telling me the story, and all of a sudden I don't hear things that should come up. My realtor, I don't hear a realtor say, "Well, why are you selling without a realtor?" Well, because it's my tenant, and I know the guy who's rented for me. Okay, it's great. So what else do you know about contracts? What else do you mean? So people try to save money. And it's not a place to save money, guys.
Yeah, or penny wise, dollar foolish is
not a place to save money. That's for sure.
Yeah, you absolutely need to run escrow. It's really, and again, the reason that the law says you have to do this is because people who do it without get in all kinds of trouble, and that makes a mess for the courts. It makes a mess for the assessor's office and everybody involved. There is a right way and there is a wrong way. If you do it the right way, everybody goes away happy. It all works out beautifully. If you do it the wrong way, you're walking headlong into a disaster. It's just kind of that. And even if it's not a disaster this week or next week, it's going to be at some point.
It's amazing how people look back at the situation and go, man, that was smooth. Thanks for straightening me out and get me in the hands of the right people and making this transaction go streamlined.
That's the way it's supposed to work.
That's right.
That's the idea. That's the idea. So anyway, we'll get these things fixed. You guys who listen regularly and those of you who do, I appreciate it. The ones who call in regularly and email. Actually, nobody calls in, but the people who email me regularly, I appreciate it. Although we did get somebody from Facebook Live last week. I was very excited about that. So it was thrilling to have somebody kind of like, it was mostly because Jane was here. Because she's, in addition to being better looking, she's smarter than I am. So that's probably why we got some stuff on Facebook Live. But anyway, for those of you who are listening out there, please don't buy or sell a house without using an escrow company. Please go to find professionals, use them. You can call my office. I'll point you in the right direction. And I don't have to represent you. You can call me. I'll just give you the information. If you have a realtor, that's fine. I'm happy to fill in the blanks for you. I educate other realtors all the time. I don't use their names, but people call me and send me emails all the time asking me questions. I'm sure you get this as well.
Yeah, I do.
And it's just a matter of we've just been around forever. It's just that.
Providing value, Rich, is what you do. And I do all day long.
You can say, I can provide value. I'll do that. But I think it's more that I started doing this, and you started before me when the Earth was flat and dinosaurs still ruled the plane. I think that's why it was. I don't know that it ever seems simpler, but
no, it just keeps getting more complex. That's the key, though. Listen to that. It gets more complex every day.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of money involved, and houses are expensive. Sure. Anyway, so if you guys have any questions for me or have any other questions for Steve, you can email me after the show, and I will be happy to get you answers. If they're questions for Steve, I'll get them to him. He'll answer them for you. But please, consider us a resource. I'll speak for Steve on this. I don't usually do that, but consider Steve a resource as well. If you have questions, you call Newhall Escrow anytime. What number should they call?
661-259-3450.
And if they want to email you, give us
Steve Korn, that's C-O-R-N, like the vegetable, at newhallescrow.com.
And again, for those of you if you've missed the beginning of this, Steve has been doing this for 32 years. He's one of the few people I know who's been doing this longer than me. He's got me beaten by a year. I think you started when you were 7 as well.
That's right.
That's the case.
Did diapers.
Family business. It's not that dissimilar for me. But the point here is, he's got a world of experience, just a wealth of experience, an entire career full of experience, and he's not done yet. So if you have questions, he is a very, very good resource to reach out to. So yeah, so please do. So thank you guys. I'd like to thank you guys for coming in. Thank you for answering questions for us.
Glad to
Steve.
be
I
here, Rich.
appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.
I use the resource all the time, and I appreciate you doing it on the Air Force. It was very, very nice of you. And as we get more questions, as this show gets
Please
more, we'll
send
send
them on.
over
We'll
to you.
definitely
So
take care of the
thank you
answers.
for coming in. We're going to go to our next break, pay some more bills. When we come back, we're going to talk about free money, but we can we're giving sellers money today. That's what we're doing today. We're going to talk more about giving buyers money too, because that's my favorite thing. So thank you guys for listening. We'll be back in a few minutes to talk some more about that. And thank you, Steve, again for coming in. I'm Rich Sherman, and this is the Real Estate Fix. Hello, welcome back. I'm Rich Sherman, and you're listening to the KHTS AM 1220 FM 98.1, and this is the Real Estate Fix, where we have people call in, or we get emails, and I fix your real estate problems. I've been doing this for 30 years. There's over 30 years, and there's not much I haven't seen, although I'm always up for new stuff. And I'm here to be a resource for you and fix your problems. Under that very heading, let's talk about free money. I like talking about giving away money. We give away money all the time in my office, and I want to talk about it. The last couple of weeks we've been talking about it. It's gotten some little bit of a reaction. We've been talking about buyers because we give buyers money to buy a house. We're help them buy a house. To reiterate, the buyer program, and I'm just going to go over this very quickly, and we're going to talk about sellers today. The buyer program, called the rental rebate program. It's designed to take people who are currently renters and turn them into buyers. That's what it's designed to do, and we put money into transactions to make it easier for people to buy a house. The money comes from a combination of the realtor and the other affiliates all help out, which is very nice. It works kind of like a grant, and it's 10% of the rent you have already paid. So it's super simple. Whatever you're paying in rent, take 10% of that over the last 2 years, even 3 in some cases. We can expand a little bit, and we can give you that money to go buy a house. There's no strings. I mean, you have to use us to buy a house because we can't give you something we don't have, so we have to represent you. But other than that, you can use it at any house. You can use it anywhere in the state of California. It's real money. You can use it for anything you'd like. So it's not smoke and mirrors. It's not just something we write on a balance sheet. It is actual money that we put into a transaction in order to make it easier for a buyer to buy, to get them out of renters. Because I believe that everybody who rents should own. It's just a fundamental thing with me. So yeah, everybody keeps asking. They seem to think there's more to it than that. Literally, the entire application and all the rules are one page. I like to keep things simple. All the rules for the program and the application for the program is one page, single side, just one page. So everyone keeps calling me about this, and they think they've discovered the angle, and there's no angle. We're just giving away money. We'll give you money to help you buy a house. So if you can hear me and you're interested in this, call me. Comment through the website. You can call me at 661-714-1400. I answer that phone call 24 hours a day, like phone number 24 hours a day. You might have heard it ringing in my pocket because I forgot to silence it before I came in. Sorry about that. I do answer that all the time. You can also text me at that number. You can also reach me at the Fix with Rich at Gmail, thefixwithrich@gmail.com. You can also reach me through the station here. I'm pretty easy to find. I've got a very unique last name. It's pronounced Sherman, but it's spelled S-Z-E-R-M-A-N. So the Z kind of throws it off. It makes me pretty easy to find. So if you just S-Z-E-R-M-A-N into any internet search engine, you will find me. But yeah, we're literally giving away money. Just give us a call. We'll set you up. We'll get you going. We'll give you money. You'll go buy a house. But let's talk about sellers. I want to get into sellers a little bit today, with a little bit of time we have left here, as we do something very similar for sellers. Here's the situation. When I first got into real estate, I realized that there were a lot of, let's just say, gaps in the real estate market, in the way real estate works, and the way real estate functions. And find a need and fill it is a pretty good business model. So we've been sort of seeking to do that. I've been seeking to do that since my first weeks in real estate. So when I had a lot of buyers who didn't have enough money to buy houses, they were close but didn't quite have enough money. I put together a program where we could give them money out of commissions and things like that, help them buy a house. And that became the rental rebate program. We have one very similar for sellers. It's called the Resale Renovation Program. And the way this works is, if you own a home and you're getting ready to sell it, we will give you money to put into your house to fix up your house for sale. Because here's the thing, and I'm not giving anybody a secret they don't know, houses in the best shape sell for the most money the quickest. Now, as a realtor, I will tell you, every house that I have to hold costs me money. The more time it takes to get that house sold, the more it costs me. The more it's true of every realtor, it's a holding cost. It's not a lot, but it's still a cost. Also, it drives sellers crazy. They would like certainty, they'd like to get on with their lives. They want to have the thing put together and done as quickly as they can in most cases. So the better the house looks, the quicker it's going to sell, and more importantly, the more it's going to sell for. I'll give you a real world example, one we're working on right now in Canyon Country. We were just doing the numbers on this the other day. We're going to put, we're going to put about $8,000 into this house. The seller's going to put in about another 15 or 16, which I think we're going to loan them so that they can afford to do all the fixes that they need. And in this particular house, we're going to do about $25,000 worth of work, I think all told, $24,000. But right now, and this is the important part, right now, that house as it sits is worth about $725,000. That's what it's worth. If we put say 20 to 25,000 into this house, it'll sell for 800,000. That is a 3-to-1 return. We spent 25 grand on the house, they get $75,000 more out of the house. So it's a worthwhile investment. The seller's problem is their economic situation is such that they don't have the money to put into the house. It's not a bad house. House is, it's not unlivable. It's not going to be red tagged or anything. It just could use new carpet and paint. It could use kind of a once over. The family that's there has lived there for decades. They've raised kids there. They've had animals there, all the good stuff that we all do. And the house is, it's getting a little worn. It's not a bad house. You could move into tomorrow if you wanted to. But if we do these repairs, going to be worth a premium. It'll have new carpet. It'll have new paint. It'll have cabinetry repaired. It'll have all of that stuff done. It'll have all the stuff backyard cleaned up. It'll have all the gazebos and stuff cleaned out. It'll be in great shape. So again, we spend $25,000. We get a $75,000 return. I don't see anybody who doesn't take that bet. Heck, even if it's only a $50,000 return, it's still doubling on the money. The key, of course, is having the money to do that. And we do. So we created something called a resale renovation program for situations exactly like this. So we go into this house in Canyon Country. We go through the house with the seller. We look at all the various things that they want fixed, that I think they should fix. We come up with a list. We don't do this on our own. We do it with the seller. It's their house. Everything is done in concert with the seller. And we come up with a list that works for them and works for us. We say, okay, this is what we can expect to get if we fix this. This is the return we expect to get on that. If we clean that out, here's the return we can expect to get. So we're focused on the stuff that's going to make the most bang for the buck. And once we come up with a list, we get contractors out there. There are people I recommend. You can use other contractors. You do not have to use the people I recommend. We usually do because they usually have the best prices because we do a lot of this, but you don't have to. But we get them out there and they bid the job. We usually get competitive bids. We usually get 2 or 3 bids for each job, whatever we're doing. And then the seller, not me, the seller decides who they want to have do the work. I sign off on it. I put up the money and away we go. Again, it's not complicated. Much like the rental rebate system, it's super easy. We're literally just putting money into it. We're just giving away money because here's the thing. I've been very blessed over my life. I really have. I have a very, very good real estate career. It's very profitable. And I discovered a long time ago that focusing on simply my success was not what I wanted. That was a very hollow sort of victory. It was much more fun and made my day a whole lot more interesting and frankly made me more successful to focus on my client's success, which cut me some slack. I was 19 when I started. I figured this out by the time I was 25. I still think it's pretty early for these sort of revelations in one's life. But anyway, focusing on the client's success is important. And if I need to use my money or my company's money to help my clients, why wouldn't I do that? I do more business as a result of these programs. My clients sell for more money. I'm a realtor. I work on commission, so the more the house sells for, the more I make as well. Of course, the client makes a lot more than I do. But it's one of those situations where if I, dig in a little deeper, my office digs in a little bit deeper, everybody wins. Who doesn't want to do that? So to make a long story short, if you're a buyer, especially if you're a renter, we will give you money to help you buy a house. If you are a seller, we will give you money to fix up your house. Either way, we wind up working for a little bit less in commissions and things like that, or the rates wind up being a little bit lower because we invest in our clients. Again, this is the more you give, the more you get is not a revolutionary business concept. I'll say that again. The more you give, the more you get is not a revolutionary business concept. It just seems that way because so few people operate that way these days. I have no trouble with this house in Canyon Country. First of all, I love these clients. They've been clients for a while. I like them a lot. They're very nice people. I'm happy that I'm in a position I can help them out. But if we do this right, they're going to sell their house and wind up with an additional $75,000 that they would not have had before. They would have no shot at before, and now they can do it. Also, they don't have to sell the house as a fire sale. They can sell it at the top of the market to the best buyers. So again, sellers, we will give you money to fix your house. Buyers, we will give you money to help you buy a house. So I don't know how I can make it simpler than that. We literally give away money. So if you are interested in getting money, free money, from me or my office to either buy a house or to sell a house, call me anytime. You can reach me at 661-714-1400. Again, 661-714-1400. As I said, I answer that phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If I don't answer because I'm on the phone doing something else or I'm asleep or in the shower or on the radio, please send me a text and I will call you back as soon as I'm able to. But we literally are giving away money to help you with your real estate problems. So in addition to fixing people's real estate problems, which we do on a regular basis, for free, we will also, if you're a buyer or a seller, give you money to help you buy a house. So if you are interested in free money, or you have a real estate problem, please give me a call. Reach out to me. You can reach out to me through the station. You can call me on my cell phone. Whatever works best, just find me. I'm easy enough to find. Again, my name is Rich Sherman. It's spelled S-Z-E-R-M-A-N. It's pronounced Sherman, but there's a Z in it for no apparent reason.